Welcome back to another discussion of the Declassified Gateway experience. And in today's discussion, we're going to be getting into many different aspects of this. And so we're actually going to be talking about multiples at once today, which is something that we didn't do before because we didn't need to. But today, I read through the document again today just to refresh myself. And it's very clear that we need to talk about more than one thing so that this can actually make sense to you. Because if we do just number 5 or number 6, it's not going to make sense, at least to me. So today we're going to be discussing Hemi-Sync. How does Hemi-Sync work? How do we synchronize our left and right hemisphere of our brain? And how do we get our brain into a laser-like focus instead of a lamp type of focus, and what that really means for us? And then also we're going to be discussing the frequency following response, which is how we synchronize our brainwave states. How can we use headphones and different frequencies to get us into states of creativity or out of body experiences and the like? And then also the role of resonance, which is basically a deeper explanation as to how the bifurcation echo works. And this is something that you really can't find on the internet very much. I can't when I actually look for what the bifurcation echo is, there's not very much explanation at all. So you're going to be getting that here today. And also we're going to discuss how Zen meditation and different meditations, how they come to the same conclusions as Hemi-Sync does. But what Hemi-Sync involves is doing this much quicker. Like, you don't have to sit in a monastery or sit and meditate for 20 years to get this same effect. Now you can, but it's not necessarily required. All right, and I had to wear glasses today. I had to wear my blue light blockers. If you're like, Nick, what are those weird glasses you're wearing? I had to wear them because my eyes have been burning. Here, this is an Airbnb you're looking at here. I just moved here for the next month, like 2 days ago, and my eyes are still adjusting. So we need the blue light blockers today. And by adjusting, I mean to the Arizona heat. So my eyes have been super dry, and when they're super dry and I start looking at screens, my eyes have been super sensitive because I had eye surgery when I was a kid, and it's a whole thing. But anyways, so Gateway and Hemi-Sync. So I'm just going to read through it and kind of discuss it with you so that it makes sense, because I know people have read this before, but again, this is more of a commentary as well and an explanation to it. So number 5, Gateway and Hemi-Sync. Now that we have briefly profiled the basic mechanics of the principal techniques for altering or expanding consciousness, which share some of the objectives and or methods employed in the Gateway experience, we may proceed to focus on what the technique actually involves. Okay, so what is Hemi-Sync involve? What does the Gateway experience involve, rather? Fundamentally, the Gateway experience is a training system designed to bring enhanced strength, focus, and coherence to the amplitude and frequency of brainwave output between the left and right hemispheres so as to alter consciousness, moving it outside the physical sphere so as to ultimately escape even the restrictions of time and space. Can you imagine that? If you've never done that before, it's possible. This is from the 1980s. So this has been doing it. People been doing it. The participant then gains access to the various levels of intuitive knowledge which the universe offers. What differentiates little voice crack there. What differentiates the Gateway experience from forms of meditation is its use of the Hemi-Sync technique, which is defined in a monograph by the Monroe Institute trainer Melissa Jaeger as a state of consciousness defined when the EEG, holy cow, I had some coffee this morning, forgive me, the EEG patterns of both hemisphere are simultaneously equal in the amplitude and frequency. Okay, so I kind of scuffed that, but what it's basically saying is that the patterns of both hemispheres of your brain are equal in amplitude and frequency, and that when that happens, some magical things start to happen. Although Hemi-Sync seems to be rather rare and of only short duration in ordinary human consciousness, Melissa Jaeger states that audio techniques developed by Bob Monroe can induce this and sustain Hemi-Sync with the Institute's basic Focus 3 tapes. He also notes that studies conducted by Elmer and Alice Green at the Menninger Foundation, that's what it is, Menninger Foundation, have shown that a subject with 20 years of training in Zen meditation could consistently establish Hemi-Sync at will. sustaining it for over 15 minutes. And that's what we were talking about a little bit earlier when I said you don't have to meditate to do this, but you can, and you get the same result. They're just calling Hemi-Sync coherence, essentially, to get your brain into a higher state of consciousness. They call it Hemi-Sync. In Zen meditation, you might call that something different, but it's just the same thing described differently. Continuing, Dr. Stuart Twemlow, a psychiatrist and research associate at the Monroe Institute, reports that in our studies of the effect of the Monroe tape system on brainwaves, we have found that the tapes encourage the focusing of brain energy. It can be measured as with a light bulb in watts into a narrower and narrower frequency band. This focusing of energy is not unlike the yoga concept of one pointedness, which we may translate in Western terms as single mindedness. Dr. Twemlow goes on to observe that as the individual gets into the tapes beyond focus 3, there is a gradual increase in brainwave size, which is a measure of brain energy or power. And as we can see here, and if you can't see, what we're looking at here is a theta brainwave before and after synchronization chart. What we're basically seeing here is that before, let's talk about before. In the normal person, your brainwave states are unintelligible, unbalanced brainwave patterns with restricted thought processes, prone to anxiety, depression, and weakened mental and emotional health. And then after 15 minutes of synchronization, or 25 minutes, and it increases obviously as it goes along, harmonizing and balancing both hemispheres allows the brain to work in sync, making communication of thoughts, information, and responses more effortless, efficient, and coherent. A more integrated system produces optimal performance, functioning, and mental and emotional health. So, depending on what background you're coming from here, whether that's the spiritual or maybe that's more logical, mental realm, I think they're both saying the same thing, that when you are having emotional states of depression, anxiety, that correlates to your brainwave states. But when you maybe feel your feelings, if you're more from the spiritual realm, then you allow the experience to be what it is. Maybe that might have an effect on how the harmonizing of the brain goes. That's why meditation achieves the same thing that Hemi-Sync does. Okay. So whether you're coming from that realm or you're coming from the mental area, which might be when you use these tapes, or when you can look up right now on YouTube and you can do 4 hertz frequency, and there'll be binaural beats on there. And you can use these type of things to get your brain to relax, Barb. To get it to just say, let's just take it easy for a second. And so when you're kind of out of whack, it might be your brain is not working correctly. And maybe all the things that your mind is telling you are not true. It might just be you might want to address the brainwave states. This is what this is kind of saying. And not only just for happiness and depression, anxiety, these type of things, but also to escape the confines or restrictions, as they say in number 5, of time and space. All right, so lamp versus laser. Melissa Jaeger uses a metaphor to help clarify the process involved in the use of Hemi-Sync in the gateway experience. She points out that the human mind in its natural state may be likened to an ordinary lamp, which expends energy in the form of both heat and light, but in a chaotic, incoherent way, which diffuses its energy over a wide area of rather limited depth. On the other hand, the human mind, under the discipline of Hemi-Sync, acts after the fashion of a laser beam, which produces a disciplined stream of light. The stream of energy is projected with total coherence of both frequency and amplitude, such that the surface area of a laser beam contains billions of times the energy, the concentrated energy, found in a similar surface area of the sun. Gateway assumes that once the frequency and amplitude of the human brain are rendered coherent, it is possible to begin accelerating both, so that the human mind is soon resonating at ever higher vibrational levels. The mind can then bring itself into synchronization with more sophisticated and rarefied energy levels in the universe. The mind, when operating at these increasingly rarefied levels, is assumed to be capable of processing the information thus received through the same fundamental matrix by which it makes sense of ordinary physical sensory input to achieve meaning in a cognitive context. So let's break that down for a sec. When the mind is operating at these sophisticated levels, what happens is that you process information in a different way, in a quicker way. And such meaning is usually perceived visually in the form of symbols, but may also be perceived as astonishing flashes of holistic intuition, or even in the form of scenarios involving both visual and oral perception. The mechanics by which the mind exercises these consciousness functions will be addressed in more detail later in this paper. So, contemplate that the reason why some people might be able to see certain things, whether that's they might be saying that they can see things that other people can't see, that type of thing, or maybe it's more along the lines of when people experience things, let's just say very broadly, outside the perception of others, or maybe they have intuitive hits or flashes of intuitive hits, which I've had before. It might be because your brain is able to perceive it. Your brain is in the right state so that you can, not right, but rather a state that you can start to look at something, or you can start to receive rather this information. And think about how maybe if you're in lower brainwave states, you just literally cannot receive the information because your brain isn't operating at a frequency that allows for it. Here's a quote: per cubic centimeter, the human body produces 10,000 times more light than the surface of the sun, by Dr. Zach Bush. So we got a lot of light in here. Got a lot of light in here. And how we use that, whether we want to laser focus that in on certain things, this might actually involve concepts such as so-called manifestation. That when you start to activate this laser type mentality, maybe your energy isn't spread so thin on everything else that the unified field starts to respond to your laser like focus on something. And how you go about doing that is definitely a whole different video. Today's going to be long enough. So, number 7, frequency following response. To achieve synchronization of brain hemispheres, the Hemi-Sync technique takes advantage of a phenomenon known as a frequency following response, which means that if a subject hears a sound produced at a frequency which emulates one of those associated with the operation of the human brain, the brain will try to mimic the same frequency pattern by adjusting its brainwave output. Therefore, if the subject is in a fully awake state but hears sound frequencies which approximates brainwave output at the theta level, the subject's brain will endeavor to alter its brainwave pattern from the normal beta to theta level. Since the theta level is associated with sleep, the subject concerned may progress from a fully awake to a sleep state provided that he does not consciously resist. As the brain strives to entrain its wave frequency output with the one which the person hears. Okay, so let's just pause for a second. Basically, if you're hearing things if you're not things, but if you're hearing frequencies in your headphones and that frequency is at a lower brainwave state than the one that you're at, your brain tries to get down low to that state. That's just how the brain works. So if you hear 4 hertz and you're currently at, I think the 4 to 7 is theta, if I remember correctly. So, and if you're in regular beta, your brain is going to try and get down into that lower brainwave state that matches that frequency. So that's why it's called the frequency following response. And that's what binaural beats are in a sense. There's actually 2 different frequencies playing in either side of your headphones. And then what happens is well, actually, let's look at this diagram here. You can see here you have on one side 104 hertz and then on the other side 100 hertz. And so what happens is that your brain does this minusing thing and it takes the difference. Imagine the freaking knowledge that it takes, or the advanced nature of your brain, where it can take 100 hertz in one ear and 104, and it can be like, you know what? There's actually about 4 hertz playing here, and it subtracts the difference. So you'll actually hear 4 hertz, and then your brain will try to get down into 4 hertz. Isn't that wild? I think that's what it's about to describe, but we'll continue on. Since these brainwave frequencies are outside the spectrum of sounds which can be heard in pure form by the human ear, Hemi-Sync must produce them based on another phenomenon known as the brain's capacity for deducing beat frequencies. So it's exactly what I just described. If the human brain is exposed to one frequency in the left ear, which is 10 hertz below the audible frequency played in the right ear, rather than hearing either one of the two audible frequencies, the brain chooses to hear the difference between them, the beat frequency, thus availing itself of the FFR phenomenon and using the technique of beat frequencies. The gateway system uses Hemi-Sync and other audio technologies or audio techniques employed by the FFR frequency following response phenomenon to introduce a variety of frequencies which are played at a virtually subliminal, marginally audible level. The objective is to relax the left hemisphere of the brain, place the physical body in a virtual sleep state, and bring the left and right hemispheres into coherence under the conditions designed to promote the production of ever higher amplitude and frequency of brainwave output. Audible and perhaps subliminal suggestions by Bob Monroe accompany the various brainwave frequencies, which are sometimes rolled in together with other sounds such as sea surf to mask the sound frequencies where desirable. In this way, Gateway endeavors to provide the subject with the tools by which he may alter his consciousness based on his own volition over time through repetitive use of the tapes so as to access, via intuitive means, new categories of information not available to ordinary consciousness. So, in summary of the frequencing following response, your brain tries to match the frequencies of that it hears if it's in the lower brainwave state. So basically, to keep it very simple, and these might not be exact, but let's say that normal beta is, I think it's like a it's above, I think, 10 hertz. I could be wrong on that. I should probably have memorized that by now, but give me a freaking break. So let's just say, for a hypothetical example, the numbers don't matter too much. But what we can imagine is that there's a bunch of brainwave states below beta, and there's also gamma above it, which is a whole nother phenomenon, we won't discuss that right now. But let's say that there's 4, 3, or 2, or 1, or 6, 7, 8, 9. And it hears that. It goes down into it. Okay, frequency following response. That should be clear by now. And then the other one is that it's something called a beat frequency, which is, as you can see from this picture, or if you're just listening, 104 in one ear or 100 in the other. It tells the difference between the two, and it goes to 4 hertz. And that is the basis of binaural beats, or Hemi-Sync. So now let's talk about a role of resonance. However, I'm going to read it now. However, brain coherence through entrainment to beat frequencies introduced via stereo headphone is only part of the reason why the gateway system works. It is also designed to achieve the physical quietude characteristic of deep transcendental meditative states, which bring about a complete alteration of the fundamental resonance pattern associated with the sound frequencies produced by the human body. Yoga, Zen, or transcendental meditation, if practiced long enough, will produce a change in the sound frequency with which the human heart resonates throughout the entire body. Have you ever heard that before? If you haven't, I wouldn't be surprised, because I had never heard this before, that your heart starts to resonate throughout your entire body. Just remember to keep it very simple. What I'm about to read is going to get technical for a second. And all I want you to really think about is that I'm describing how the heart resonates throughout the entire body, because it gets very medically technical. According to Bentov, this change in resonance results from the elimination of what the medical profession calls the bifurcation echo, so that the sound of the heartbeat can move synchronously up and down the circulatory system in harmonious resonance approximately 7 times a second. So these, let's just take that in for a second. 7 times a second, the resonance from your heartbeat moves up and down. So it's like hey, we gotta have some fun. We gotta have some fun. So that's fast. Like I did that, and it was probably just about that fast. Think about 1 second. How fast it is. That's crazy. It's not crazy. It's just so interesting. The body is so advanced. It's ridiculous, and I didn't even realize it a lot of the times. Bentovs describes the role played in the bifurcation echo as follows. And if you make it, hold on. If you made it to that part, can you comment in the comments, please? Thank you. Okay. So Bentov describes the role played by the bifurcation echo as follows. When the left ventricle of the heart ejects blood, the aorta, being elastic, balloons out just beyond the valve and causes a pressure pulse to travel down along the aorta. When the pressure pulse reaches the bifurcation in the lower abdomen, which is where the aorta forks in two, like this, basically, and goes into the legs. Well, it's actually much lower than that. I'm doing that up here so you could see. Basically, then it goes into the legs. Part of the pressure pulse rebounds and starts traveling up the aorta. So it goes down up in your circulatory system. If in the meantime, the heart ejects more blood and a new pressure pulse is traveling down, these two pressure... Oh, man, I'm going to have to pause it and start it because I missed a tiny little sliver at the end. So, 1 sec. Okay, I got it. Here we go again. So I'm going to read that part again. If in the meantime the heart ejects more blood and the new pressure pulse is traveling down, these two pressure points will eventually collide somewhere along the aorta and produce an interference pattern. Interference pattern is a huge word when it comes to holographic nature of reality. Remember that word. By placing the body in a sleep-like state, the gateway tapes achieve the same goal as meditation in that it places the body in such a profoundly relaxed state that the bifurcation echo slowly fades away as the heart lessens the force and the frequency with which it pushes blood into the aorta. The result is a regular, rhythmic sine wave pattern of sound which echoes throughout the body and rises up into the head in sustained resonance. The amplitude of this sine wave pattern, when measured with a sensitive seismograph type instrument, is about 3 times the average sound volume produced by the heart when it is operating normally. So you can start to get your body to do these very, very interesting states. And when you do this, your heart starts to do different things, and then it starts to basically put energy into your head. And basically what happens is there's essentially kind of like a cheat code to how your body works. And so how you do this is so simple. You meditate. Or you use the binaural beats, or you do both at the same time. And so you just got to have the concentration. And then when you get that concentration and you're able to sit in these meditations, even though your mind wants to do this, that, and the next, you start to see that, oh, I can use this body as an instrument. And I'm just literally, or a controller. I'm controlling this physical body right now, but I can actually go out from the confines or restrictions of time space and move beyond it. And that's what we're going to get into. But we had to cover these basics again so that you understand how Hemi-Sync works and how this whole game that we're playing works with getting into these out-of-body experiences. So just understand that as we continue on, it's going to get much more technically difficult to understand. But that the point of today was to understand, as a summary, that the gateway experience is meant to get you out of your body or to get your brain synchronized so that you can achieve whatever it is you might want to achieve. And again, that could be out of body states, but it could also be just synchronized so that you can achieve certain goals you might have, because you can tap into intuition, because your intuition seems to be directly linked to your brainwave states. That there's some sort of way that when we get down into these states, that you can now connect yourself to what you might call a higher self, the field of energy that gives you information, whatever technical terminology that you prefer to use, throw it in there. And that when you do that, you're able to use your laser-like focus to maybe get things done or to achieve a higher state of consciousness. Maybe that's even just through emotional states. It could be many different things. And then your body works in a specific way to deduce the different frequencies, which we discussed very much, and then the role of the different resonances and how heart resonance has a bifurcation echo that goes up and down your body, and that when this happens, your brain starts to work differently. In summary, all right, so that was 5, 6, 7, and 8. And in the next episodes, we'll be talking about, I'm sure, 9, 10. We'll talk about all of them eventually, of course. That's the goal. And we'll get there as fast as we can, right? But we want to make sure we cover this so it makes sense. So it's not just we're rushing this kind of series, because I want this to be something you can come back to and really understand the gateway process. All right. So today, I wanted to mention, for those of you that don't know here on YouTube, I haven't said it here on YouTube because I haven't done a video since this has happened. I have my first book, 10 Secrets of Awakening. It is now up and available on Amazon. You can go get it right now. And all the people that are following me on Instagram and on TikTok, you guys have made this book the #1 new release in my category, which is philosophy metaphysics. This is the #1 new release. It happened the first day. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who has already gotten the book. And I'm so excited to hear what you think about it. And so this is out now. What the book is about, as you can see here, the secrets to understanding consciousness, life transformation, and self-realization. And also, I didn't announce this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts yet, if that's your usual place of listening. So here it is, and you can go check it out. I put all the secrets of what I thought would really be able to help you in the 3 different areas, which I feel like I specialize in, which is understanding consciousness, life transformation, and self-realization. I feel like these are the most important to me. So, you want to know more? It's available on Amazon. You can also get an ebook. If you like the ebooks, you can also get it that way. All right? So, check it out if you feel called, if it resonates. Otherwise, if you're here on YouTube, feel free to hit the subscribe or consider hitting subscribe so that way you know when we're going to do more videos on this, or if you enjoyed or got value from this video, that would be great. Otherwise, if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, nice. I think you might be able to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. That would be greatly appreciated so you can support me so I can keep doing these type of videos. All right. So that'll do it for today's discussion, and I will see you in the next one. And until then, peace.